I think it's very easy to find confidence in things that you've been told are secure and important, and how to measure, how to keep up with other people, if you will. Today on Consider This Program, we're going to explain to you why knowing a simple number may not be as important as you think when it comes to having financial freedom and retirement. Well, good morning and welcome to Consider This Program. I'm your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Dean Huddleson.
Dean is one of our senior advisors up in the Lafayette, Indiana area, right outside of good old Purdue. Happy to have you along, Dean.
Good to be here.
He happens to be our resident Social Security expert when it comes to Social Security planning, as well as helping us with a lot of the Medicare questions that we have. If you know anything about the Financial Enhancement Group, there's 34 of us that are on the team, and we each kind of have a little niche. I've been focusing on legacy planning and distribution for years and years. And as we've added Aaron Reum, our director of financial planning, and Grant and Jamie and Dean and others, and there will be more to come. As we add them, it is to be able to answer some of these niche questions that just continue to grow. So we are talking about knowing your number. Dean, what do you think about that?
It makes me think of an old commercial where people walked around with these giant foam letters, and it said, the question was, what do you need to retire on? And somebody would have 900,000 or somebody would have 2 million. And it really comes down to a question is, what is your standard of living going to be?
And your fearless leader would grow chest hairs that were gray during the commercials. Yes, I remember. And yes, that it really does come down to one of the things is standard of living. So what is standard of living? What does that mean?
Well, we're working, we're all making money, we're enjoying life, we're doing those things. But when we retire or stop that work process, no one expects to see their standard of living drop. They all expect it to stay here and do things that they want to do when they're taking distributions. They want to go see grandkids somewhere. They want to travel. They want to do those kind of things. So we have to make sure as we have money flowing out that we can supply that standard of living that they're now accustomed to.
So there are people, I will tell you, there are people who are worried about being able to maintain that standard of living. Mm-hmm. But I would argue, after 33 years of doing this personally, I would argue that the biggest switch is actually throwing that where I no longer need my income to where I need that standard of living, right? For instance, I did a family update with Grant and one of our paraplanners, Jana. We're always three, and there's always three people in the room when I'm there, and the family that we're taking care of. This time it happened to be over Zoom, right? And she has a little over about $2.2 million. I said she, the family, has a little over $2.2 million. They need about $7,300 in order for them to be able to maintain their standard of living. And when I say $7,300, I mean monthly.
That's
right?
A net number.
That's a net number. So that means before the IRS gets involved, right? So I'm able to run them through the financial vision. Are we still on track? Absolutely. Your life after work, can we do it? We talked about the retirement budget. That's where the standard of living comes into play. The annual tax plan, how much money she should still be taking out of her IRA, even though she doesn't need it, to move to the Roth because she'll be below the threshold for the 12% bracket. We talked about the investment model that she needed to be in. And as we move her 401k over, how that works to be able to go into the accounts that we have. We talked about the life happens. Hey, we've got our kids married, but we have 2 grandbabies that are on the way. And then last but not least is making sure that legacy plan is updated. That is really the process. But Dean, you know the hard part for her?
What's that?
It's what I said a minute ago, the flipping that switch.
Oh, you mean taking money out.
25 years ago, she didn't make in a year what she makes in a month now.
Right.
Now think about that,
yeah.
Right? Because people have this belief, and if you ever go online to try to study this stuff, what you're going to see is that you need 70% of your pre-retirement income to be able to survive, which is bogus. That may be average for the average American family. If you're taking the time to listen to this show or watch this video, you ain't one of them. You ain't average, right? And you're not above average. And when we talk about know your number, it's only talking about what's tax deferred. It's not talking about the fact that they have great tax distribution where 30% of their money was actually already in Roth IRAs that we helped them convert to. Got her to put money into her 401k inside of the Roth, and also build up money that was after tax so that we can enjoy life, see those grandbabies, and do the things that we really need to do, right? And this is important to understand, but she makes more money in a month today than she made 25 years ago when she started raising her kids, right? And I say she, it's them, right? When they started raising their kids, she earns more money today in a month than she did in a year then, and it is very hard emotionally to flip that switch, right? To turn that puppy off. And so I think sometimes people see these, knowing your number as the end-all, be-all thing without understanding all 5 of the critical elements that we talked about. Right.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
we talk about it in my book, the Retirement Runway. It should be out in November if somebody can get off their duff and write instead of do radio. Right. I'd rather talk to you than write for you, but it's, it is what it is. We're going to get it done. But in there, title of the book is Retirement Runway. The website will be My Retirement Runway. And the whole idea is that you are going to go through what I call a roller coaster of a plane ride from the time you start to the time you finish. So, Dean, talk to me about what the plane ride looks like.
Well, the plane ride, when we're talking about phases of finance, we're going to take off the plane like you do off of any tarmac. And that's when really saving the right amount of your money counts. You want to be putting as many dollars as you possibly can out of your income. Now, for some people, that's a matter of budget. Once you start doing that early on, because compounding earnings is our friend, is it not?
Absolutely.
It is. So once you reach that level of altitude, 30,000 feet in your plane, this is the time real return actually matters. The money that we make so that we can continue compounding those dollars we've put in is going to make your retirement take off. But you're going to land that plane at some point in time, and that means distribution. And that is hard for some people to think about, that I built this money up over all these years and I'm taking it out. But in distribution, we have to start paying attention to things like volatility, because a dollar taken out can't be earned back. So we really pay attention to those as we land that plane.
So I like the plane ride analogy, obviously, or I wouldn't have come up with it, right?
That's right.
So I'm a supporter of this. So let's walk through this again, because you hit the one stage, and Dean was a banker for 2 decades, right? So, compound interest, collect interest, don't pay interest, have low debt, right? That's your DNA, even though you've been at FEG for 7 or 8 years.
7.5.
Yeah. And, but your DNA still is about that. And what he said is absolutely true. When you look at that getting on the plane, you're going through security, right? You're loading the baggage, you're getting in your seat, you're on the tarmac, and you're waiting. And maybe you can only afford the cheap seats, right? And maybe you're up in first class, right? Some people can save more than others. But there's 2 things that passenger that has to keep in mind, and age is indifferent to this. It's why you see babies sometimes in first class when I get on an airplane, and you see old people in the back of the plane, right? Sometimes they're not willing to spend. Sometimes they don't have the money. Obviously, the baby has neither, right?
Right.
But here we are, we're on the plane, and we're getting on that. There's 2 things that matter: saving the right percentage of your income. But the second is building that tax diversification. Go to the story I just told you. Right. If she did not have the end game in mind, even though she got mad at me on multiple occasions about paying taxes to do Roth conversions, today she did nothing but say thank you, right? Thank you. My friend that bought the camper did the same thing this week in a text message. Thank you for helping us get here. And nobody likes to pay the taxes, but that tax diversification, because we don't know what the Biden administration is going to do any more than we knew what the Trump administration was going to do. We want to be able to have tax choices. So we're on the plane, we're at 30,000 feet in the air, and Dean, as you said, right? As you said, now we have enough where the average return matters as long as you have the discipline to be there beginning, middle, and end.
That's right.
Right? You have to be there from the crash in 87 to the tech wreck in 2000 to the 08 and 09 crisis to a pandemic in March of 2020. You have to be able to sit through all that.
How many times have I heard you say this is a journey, not a snapshot?
It's probably until one of us is done. Will you hear me remind people of that? 33 years, it's been a journey. Now, here's the point. You were just going into distribution. We've got to land the plane, and you hit one of the 2 very clearly, volatility.
Yes.
What's the other one? Do you remember?
Average dollars.
The average tax rate on those dollars, right?
It's
the average tax rate on those dollars. That's why we have all of this in a formula. Boom, 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 right? You don't have to remember all this stuff. You don't have to work that hard. I've spent 33 years of my life doing nothing but formulating it, working with CPAs, CFAs, tons of different advisors to be able to put this together so that we have that system that's in place. But when you look at that phase of finance, just think about it in order. If you want to do this on your own, God bless, that's your business. But if you're looking for a fiduciary, that is our business. And I'm here to tell you, it is more than simply knowing your number. You want to make sure that you have enough money at the end to support not your income, but your standard of living, right? You want to have that. You want to be able to maximize your tax brackets every year. That means pay the least amount possible, not necessarily this year, but in your overall financial journey, right? You want to make sure that you have the right investment model that you can hang in there and do things right with, even when the market and the economy don't follow suit. There's going to be bumps. There's going to be hiccups. You've got more time that you're going to have to deal with this. We've got to make sure we're ready for life's challenges, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And last but not least, if we don't leave it to who we want it to go to, that means not the IRS, not the ex-son-in-law, right? If we don't leave it who we want it to go to, what made the difference in the first place? We have to land the plane. Go to yourlifeafterwork.com. Get signed up for your Next Steps meeting. It's 90 minutes. It's complimentary. Dean or one of our advisors will sit down with you, and they'll walk you through things you're going to need to consider today, things you're going to want to consider in the future, and if we choose to partner together, what FEG will do for you, and we'll put it in writing. yourlifeafterwork.com, or give us a call at 800-928-4001.